So I grew up really fat, like obese, I think, technically. Um, I don't really know exactly why, because when you're a kid, I guess you don't really think so much about the fact that you're fat, for some reason. But when I was about 14 years old, just turning 14, it suddenly dawned on me that I was really big. I don't really know why it was at that particular age, but I remember I was in a Spanish class. We had to do like a photo assignment with my friends, and we had to cook a Spanish dish and do sort of like a photo diorama of the whole process. And so I invited my two best friends over to my house, and we were cooking together, and my mom took photos of us. And when the photos came back and were developed, I took one look at them and I was shocked. The first thought that came into my head was, oh my God, I am so unfuckable. It's so weird. I didn't really ever think that way before that particular moment, but that moment stands out in my mind. When I was at my heaviest, I was 14, and I probably weighed about 220 pounds. Now, if you can imagine, I'm only 5'7" now, so I was probably like 5'4", maybe 5'3" at the time, and I weighed 220. And that was pretty big. I used to have to get, I think it was size 38 jeans, maybe size 40 as well. And my mom would have to hem them really, pretty severely because I was short and quite big. Now, I don't really know why it was at that particular point that I suddenly realized that I was unfuckable, but that became like a really big obsession. I was thinking, okay, I really have to lose weight because no one is ever going to have sex with me. At the time, like, what does a 14-year-old gay boy know about dieting properly? Nothing. All I could think to do was to stop eating. So that's really what I did. And doing that is really difficult in a Korean household, as you can imagine. Korean moms in particular, I think, have this thing where they just love to see their children eat. It brings them joy. And I'm a parent now, and I get that. I have the same thing with my own kids today, and it's something that drives my husband kind of crazy because I love to overfeed my kids. It just brings me some kind of weird sense of satisfaction. I don't really know why, but it's sort of, I guess it's just like culturally sort of in me. But anyway, when I was trying to lose the weight, luckily at the time my parents were both incredibly busy. Like as I said, I grew up in a working class family, and both my parents worked a lot, and so there were times when my parents didn't really quite notice that I wasn't eating. My mom would pack the fridge every morning. She would wake up at around 4:30 in the morning and pack the fridge with a lot of food, prepared food, just to make sure that we had stuff in the fridge when we got home. And when I was 14, I started to really just completely cut food out altogether. And when I would get really weak, I would eat iceberg lettuce, or sometimes like a piece of watermelon. And if I was ever really daring, I would eat iceberg lettuce and put ketchup on it. I know this sounds really disgusting, but that was like the only thing that I could think of that wouldn't make me fat and that would help me get through my day. So yeah, that was sort of a crazy time. I think in the course of one summer, I lost I would say about 65 pounds. It was pretty nuts, but right before I got to high school, I lost a ton of weight, and I went to a different high school from the one where from my middle school. So basically, it was in New York. There's this thing called specialized high schools where you have to take a test to get in, and blah blah blah. And so I had gotten into this particular school where there were only a handful of kids from my junior high school who went to high school with me. About, I would say, maybe 20 kids. And the high school was quite big. There were 700 kids per grade. And when I got to high school, I saw some of my fellow classmates that knew me from junior high school, and they didn't recognize me because I had lost so much weight. Now, I don't really know, I'm not going to pat myself on the back for it because I had done it in a very, very unhealthy way. I had this really kind of it left me with a warped sense of who I was as well, because I always, even into adulthood, always saw myself as that fat kid. No matter what, fitness became a really big part of my life. I think once I sort of figured out how to stay fit and healthy in the right way, which took a long time, but even into adulthood, where I felt like I was sort of maintaining a really healthy body, I always sort of saw myself as that really obese kid. It's weird. It's weird how it really like fucks with your head in a way when you're super obese, and then when you lose all that weight, kind of handling how to feel about that and to how to kind of navigate your own self-esteem is sort of a tricky thing. But anyway, when I look back at those times, I wish I had sort of done it in the right way, because there were some other sort of speed bumps in the road. My parents did notice eventually that I was losing a lot of weight, and my parents grew really concerned. So my mom, would sit with me and sort of watch me eat, because she was concerned that I wasn't eating enough. And when I was forced to eat in front of her, I began to basically opt for becoming bulimic. I would just secretly throw up all the time because I was forced to eat in front of my mom. And just behaviors like that, I guess you would think it's more common with women for whatever sexist reason, but yeah, I was really mismanaging my health when I was in high school. And to make matters worse, I had joined the wrestling team. And for anybody who knows wrestlers and knows that world, that wrestlers are also incredibly neurotic and kind of sick and unhealthy about their weight as well, because the whole idea with wrestling is that you want to make a weight class that might be a little bit lower than what you weigh so that you have some kind of advantage. So I joined the wrestling team mainly because my older brother was on the team as well. And that kind of put me down a road of like really being obsessive about my weight. And that has kind of like haunted me and sort of stayed with me for my entire life. I think that that's something that kind of, in a weird way, I do feel lucky that I have had this kind of struggle with weight, because it does now that I'm 40, it keeps me sort of thinking about health and fitness and all of that. But I do think that I had done it in such an unhealthy manner that it could have gone really, really badly for me. I remember a couple of times when I was wrestling, I was so focused on losing weight, I would sit, in a sauna with like garbage bags on me to try to lose weight. And I was so malnourished and so weak that I would hardly be able to, to do any of the warm-ups, because I was just so tired and so exhausted. So, I think that what was also weird is that no one really knew that was what was going on with me. I think my outward appearance gave people the impression that I was healthy and that I was staying fit. But I think secretly I just held in the fact that there were so many times when I felt so sort of impaired by not eating that, that I could sort of barely get by. But I was ultimately kind of driven and motivated by the fact that I was looking good. So that was like this like really fucked up and kind of, crazy thing that was going on with me at the time. I was so kind of dedicated and so obsessed with this idea of looking a certain way that it was, bringing me down like a really kind of unhealthy path. And as I was figuring out my own sexual identity, sort of contiguous with all of that, I also think that I began to derive a lot of my own sort of personal value from how I looked and what my weight was. I also began to kind of build my own sense of self through how others looked at me, and that, in a sense, was something that I had to sort of unpack and sort of rework in my mind, because it really fucked with me for a while. Putting so much weight on how other people perceived me, and having that be the sole determinant of how I perceive myself. So that is something that I definitely think, I've had to work on. I still work on that even today. And if anyone feels that way as well, then I would love to kind of have that dialogue with you so that you can discuss that. I know that with gay men, body image is particularly important for most. For Asian gay men, the idea of your own body type and how you're perceived in the gay community is something that that many people do struggle with as well. I was fortunate in a weird way to always be able to put on weight, obviously because I was really, really big. But the idea of sort of like being able to keep weight on and to kind of get bigger, that's something that I know that a lot of my Asian friends have issues with. And so I feel kind of weirdly lucky that I haven't had to have that struggle. It took me kind of this it took me a long time to kind of figure out how to get to the type of body type I wanted to be. And I did it in a very kind of dangerous and unhealthy way, which I don't recommend. But yeah, I think sort of body image as it pertains to Asian men is something that we should all talk about. And I really want to encourage you to leave comments and help me to understand how you feel so that we can kind of work through this together. As I said, fitness is an important part of my life now. I actually have to work on repairing a lot of the kind of damage that I had done to my body back when I was, sort of bulimic. That has caused, some issues for me even now to this day. So there are things that I struggle with for sure. And I just want to kind of open up and share that with you, and hope that you guys will feel, at liberty to share with me as well. Thanks.